please. Jury, please.
You all set? All righty.
Okay, you may be seated. Okay, next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The case called Kristopher. Can you raise your hand, please? Do you promise whether the testimony about to give you the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth, and nothing again? Thank you. Adjust the microphone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Clark Prosser, Prosser.
And Mr. Prosser, are you familiar with another one by the name of Stephanie Lowe?
Yes,
And are you familiar with her because you've been a longtime friend of Claudia Blake, her mother?
yes.
When did you meet Ms. Blake and Ms. Lowe, Claudia Blake and Stephanie Lowe?
The year 2000.
And so what would you say your relationship was like with Stephanie?
Stephanie and I didn't always see eye to eye, but she was a good kid. She'd go out of her way for anybody. I mean, anybody.
Had you, as of October of 2010, were you aware of where her apartment was located during October of 2010?
Yes, I was.
And was that at 701 Thomas Street?
Yes, it was.
Was she living there with anybody?
Her boyfriend, Eric Mahomes.
And my understanding is that Claudia had moved out of town shortly before this incident that we're talking about here.
Correct.
And so were you staying close to Stephanie, kind of keeping an eye on her?
As much as I could, or her mother would ask me to.
Do you know approximately when, in relation to October of 2010, that Stephanie and Eric had moved into that address?
I believe it was early August. Not quite 100% sure on that.
So would have lived there for maybe a couple months?
Correct.
Prior to October 10th of 2010, had you ever been in Stephanie's apartment before?
Never.
Had you been over to the place where she previously resided?
Yes,
So it was new enough that you hadn't been there before?
correct.
Did Stephanie have dogs?
Yes.
And what dogs did she have in 2010?
She had Coco, which was a pit bull, and Chewy, which is a Pomeranian mix.
How did Stephanie feel about those dogs?
Those were her kids.
Were you aware that Eric Mahomes was involved in some poor decision-making, some drug dealing behaviors at that time?
I wasn't aware of it, but I had my own suspicions.
Nothing concrete.
Nothing concrete.
Now, at some point on October 10th of 2010, you had the opportunity to go to Stephanie's residence, correct?
Yes.
How did that come to be?
Approximately 10:30 in the morning, I received a phone call from Claudia Blake, Stephanie's mom, asking me to go check on Stephanie, which wasn't out of the ordinary. If she couldn't get in touch with her, she would always ask me to check on her, which I would do.
Were Claudia and Stephanie pretty close?
Very close.
When, so it wasn't uncommon for Claudia to call you, say, hey, you're local, can you go check on my kid?
Not at all.
So you did?
At that time, I told her, I said, I'm at the grocery store with my mother. As soon as I get her home, I will go check, which was exactly to the minute 1 hour later, 11:30 a.m.
Okay. So you arrived at Stephanie's residence
Yes,
at 11:30?
yes.
How are you so sure on the time? Did you look at the clock?
I happen to look at the clock. There are certain things that come about, I'll look at times, and then there's other things I will just, okay, whatever.
So when you got to Stephanie's that first time, well, I shouldn't say that, did you end up going there more than once that day?
Later in the afternoon,
Okay, so this 11:30 time was the first time?
yes.
When you went there at 11:30 the first time that day, were you able to get inside the residence?
No, I was not.
Let's talk about that a little. What did you do when you arrived at Stephanie's apartment?
At Stephanie's apartment, there's a door outside that was locked and deadbolted. I knocked on the door as hard as I could because I knew it was an upstairs apartment. And there was a doorbell, and I rang that. Whether it worked or not, I don't know.
Before we get past get to the lock issue, do you remember where you parked when you got there that first time?
I parked in front of the door on that side of the street,
The same side as the
the
apartment?
same side as the apartment.
And so you knocked as hard as you could and rang the doorbell, weren't sure if that worked.
Correct.
Did you see anything outside? And I know you hadn't been there before, so whether or not something was normal or not normal. So I'll specifically ask, did you see a dog kennel outside that first time you went?
I did. It was on the left side of the door, kind of in the parking lot where the vehicles parked for the apartment.
So as you're facing that downstairs door of Stephanie's apartment, that it was a red door, right?
I believe so, yes.
It would have been to the left side?
To the left side.
Do you know from your prior contacts with Stephanie, if she had to leave the house without her dogs, would either of them or both of them be kenneled, if you know?
I do not know at that point. I know Coco was a pup, and so it's possibly that she would kennel Coco, but not Chewy.
Okay. But as you sit here today, you're not certain?
Not certain.
And for a dog owner and lover, a kennel outside at that point didn't seem strange to you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So we get to the outside bottom door. How do you know that it was locked and deadbolted?
I could see a little gap for the deadbolt, and I turned the knob, and that was locked.
So when you say the knob was locked, does that mean it wouldn't give at all?
Right.
And when you said you could see a gap, was that at a different spot than that lower door handle?
I believe that the deadbolt was above the door handle. And it wasn't a big gap. I mean, it was just like any normal door, a real fine gap. You could see that the deadbolt was locked.
Okay. And this was at 11:30 in the morning?
Yes.
Now, you knocked as hard as you could, you rang the doorbell, looked around, did you see anything?
Seeing nothing.
And at the time that you're there this first time, are you trying to call Stephanie?
I had tried to call her prior just to see, and it went straight to voicemail.
Was Stephanie someone that you would have regular phone or text contact with?
Mostly text if she needed something, or I needed to tell her something from her mother, or whatever the case may be.
Would you say that you're familiar enough with her phone habits to know if it was uncommon for her to have her phone go right to voicemail?
She never had it off.
Never
had it off. It would always ring. She may not always answer, but it would always ring.
Do you know Stephanie's phone habits well enough to know if she always had her phone on her?
Yes. She would freak out if she didn't have her phone.
Okay, so what do you do when you're receiving no response, earlier phone goes right to voicemail?
I'm just observing the area while I'm waiting to see if she answers. And I happen to notice that the mail from I'm assuming the prior day was still in the mailbox.
Because this is a Sunday.
This is a Sunday.
There's no mail on Sundays.
No, correct.
So if there's mail in there, would have had to have been from at least Saturday, but not sure.
Not sure, correct.
Do you know Stephanie's habits well enough to know if she collected her mail every day?
No, I do not.
So at this point, you mentioned earlier Stephanie might not always answer her phone, but she always had it on. Are you worried yet?
Not quite, because at this point I was just called to go check on her.
Okay. So what do you do next?
I get in my vehicle, I call Stephanie's mother, Claudia, and let her know that I got no response, and I tried her phone and it went straight to voicemail.
Did Claudia express concern at that point?
Yes, she had to express concern at 10:30 when she originally called me.
Okay. Very involved mom.
Yes.
I meant to ask you, when you were ringing the doorbell and knocking, did you hear her dogs inside at all?
No.
Did that seem strange to you knowing those dogs?
Yes, as far as Chewy is concerned, because Chewy is a barker.
Chewy's the Pomeranian?
Yes.
And even though we've heard some testimony that there was a lower door and a higher door in this apartment, is that accurate?
Yes.
Is Chewy so loud that you think you would have heard him all the way down at the bottom door?
I can't say for sure, being that I don't know the, if you will, insulation of the building.
But at the time, it didn't seem quite right that you didn't hear the dog?
Correct.
Okay. So you talked to Claudia. Claudia's concerned. What is the next? What happens next?
I leave, stayed in phone contact with Claudia, back and forth, wanted me to go back, and was waiting for somebody to go with me, because at that point I didn't want to go alone.
And were you familiar with and acquainted with Stephanie's friends Alyssa Clendenning and Shelley Resch?
Yes.
And were they close enough friends to the family that they were people that you could call to say, hey, I'm going to go check on Stephanie?
Yes, actually, Claudia had told me to get a hold of Shelley to go with me.
So did you call Shelley at that point?
Yes, I let Shelley know I was on my way, and on the way to get Shelley, Claudia had called back and said, go pick up Alyssa, she wants to go with you.
Okay. So you do what Claudia asks at that point?
Yes.
So you pick up Shelley, you pick up Alyssa, you head back to Stephanie's?
Actually, first we went to some places that Alyssa might thought she'd be at, some other friends.
That Alyssa thought Stephanie would be at?
Yes,
And so you checked a couple friends' houses?
correct.
No Stephanie?
No Stephanie.
Based on the conversations, or did you have some conversations with some people that lived at those friends' houses?
I did not. At that point, when we got to places, it was either Alyssa and Shelley, or both went into the houses. I just stayed in the vehicle.
Okay, but nobody came back with Stephanie?
No.
So are you able to tell us about what time of day that is that you're looking around at friends' houses?
This is one of those times I didn't look at the clock because of all that was going on, and I would have to say it was approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So I know that you had mentioned that sometimes Stephanie didn't feel like picking up the phone or didn't answer the phone, I think was what you said exactly. Were you familiar enough with her friendships with Alyssa and Shelley to know whether that was abnormal for them not to hear from her for that long?
Yes.
And did they say that that was abnormal?
It is, yes, they did.
And as far as Claudia was concerned, did it seem abnormal in Claudia and Stephanie's relationship for her not to at least shoot mom a text or a phone call saying, hey, I'm okay?
Not when she was mad.
Okay.
She would maybe wait for a while.
And when you say a while, if Stephanie was mad at mom, how long could she?
3 hours, 4 hours.
Okay. But now we're talking about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and nobody's heard from her all day. Are you thinking something might be up?
Something, but not sure of what.
Okay. All right, so now you've got the girls, you check the friends' houses. What do you do next?
Then after we not find her at any friends' houses, then we go back to the apartment.
Okay, and same car you were in before?
Yes.
Is it a truck?
Truck.
Where did you park this time?
This time I parked across the street from the apartment,
Facing the other way?
facing the other direction.
Why did you change?
Just the way we came in.
And so if you were there at 11:30 the first time, and now this is still around 4 o'clock, or is this later?
This is a little bit later, probably 5-ish,
Okay.
5:30-ish.
So it's 4.5 hours later. Do all three of you get out of the car at the same time?
Yes,
When you get out of the car, or the truck, I should say, do all of you respond to that lower door of Stephanie's apartment?
yes.
What is the first thing you notice?
As we pull up and are approaching to stop, I happen to look to my left towards the door, and my first comments were, somebody's been here.
What things specifically that you saw, led you to believe that someone had been there?
The first and most important thing is that the door was open about 1.5 feet.
The downstairs?
The downstairs door, which had been locked and bolted when I deadbolted when I was there the first time.
And to date, aside from what we're here about, you didn't see anybody specifically, or you don't know who was there from the time that you left to the time that you got back?
No,
So you said the door was open about 1.5 feet?
correct.
Okay, what, at that point in time, if anything, do you, Shelley, and Alyssa do?
We proceed to go upstairs, and as we're going upstairs, I also noticed that the dog kennel had been moved from the left side of the door to the right side of the door behind the open door, which is now in the sidewalk.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So the dog kennel was originally, as you're facing the door, on the left.
Correct?
Now it is behind the door, so it's been moved. Does the door to the apartment swing outward onto the street?
Yes,
Okay.
from left to right,
So the kennel is still outside, but it's just on the other side?
on the other side of the door in the sidewalk.
And you had not touched the kennel?
Have not touched it.
And you had not seen anybody else touch it?
No.
So at this point, door is open, dog kennel's moved, what now?
We go upstairs. As we get upstairs, I look on the top deck. The mail had been moved. It was laying on the floor in front of the door.
So when you say top deck, so the apartment, this is the first time you're seeing it,
Correct.
has that bottom door that was first locked and then bolted, now open?
Correct.
Narrow hallway?
Average?
Okay. Light on or off in that, if you know?
I don't recall.
Okay. So when you say the top deck, are you referring to the landing outside that top door?
Yes, correct.
So still not within the inside of the apartment?
No.
And is that where the mail had been when you got there the first time?
No, the first time it was in the mailbox,
Which is outside downstairs?
which is outside downstairs.
And now it's on the landing?
And now it's on the landing,
Okay. Is it it's on the floor?
on the floor.
Do you pick it up or do you leave it?
We picked it up just after we opened the other door.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that top door. Was that locked or unlocked?
That door was also locked, but it was very flimsy. It was locked enough to stay, but it wouldn't have took much to physically just hit it.
How could you tell that?
It was an old door.
So between you and Shelley and Alyssa, were you able to make entry into the apartment?
We were.
And how exactly did that happen?
Instead of breaking the door open, I brought a credit card out of my wallet. I was shaking so bad I gave it to Shelley, and she proceeded to open the door with the credit card.
Did either of them, or you for that matter, have any previous knowledge of being able to enter that door with a credit card?
No,
So it was just something you thought you tried,
correct.
and it works?
Yes,
So you make entry into the actual apartment now.
yes,
Are the dogs home?
yes.
Okay. And you know these dogs?
I know Chewy very well. Coco's, like I said, a new pup. I didn't have that much contact with her yet.
Are you able, based on your previous knowledge of these dogs, understandably not in this residence, to say whether their demeanor was normal or abnormal?
It was abnormal. They were a little skittish and standoffish.
And you said you knew Chewy well. Was he usually more affectionate with you?
Very.
And we've heard some testimony about this. When you make entry into that top level of the apartment, what type of room, if any, is that? Is it a room, a hallway, something else?
Before the door,
Once you get into that door in the actual apartment.
when you open the door, there's like a wall right across from you and a small hallway. Now, across that wall, I don't remember if there was a door for a closet or anything, or if it was just a wall.
So can you go left or right or both?
You can go both.
Okay. What is to the left?
Left, you take about a step and a half, and you have, as you turn left, if you're looking straight after you turn left, you have the bathroom in front of you and one bedroom on each side.
And if you go to the right?
The kitchen, eat-in dining room, and a little further in is the living room.
Where did you go first, if you recall?
My first place I went was the bedroom.
Stephanie's and Eric's bedroom?
Stephanie's and Eric's bedroom.
And what, Mr. Prosser, did you take note of in the bedroom?
First thing I noticed is that the bedding was missing. And as I looked closer, I seen a stain in the middle of the bed.
And we're going to go through a couple pictures a little further into your testimony, but for right now, we're just going to have you describe that stain. What did that look like?
It looked like blood to me, dried blood.
And you said the bedding was missing, so was that what looked like dried blood directly on the mattress?
Correct.
Was it more towards the head area of the bed, the foot area, or something else?
It was the center, but towards the side. As far as head to foot, it was in the center.
Okay, and then as far as left to right, as you're facing the bed, which side was it closer to, if any?
Well, facing the bed, I was on the side of the bed. The left or right would have been the foot or the head of the bed.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. And we'll look at pictures to clear that up for the jury. Were there any other stains on any other area of the mattress that you saw?
After I was in there, not on the mattress, but later as I was in there for a few minutes, I noticed another big stain on the floor right next to the bed.
And is it safe to say the carpet in Stephanie and Eric's room was quite dark?
Yes.
Were you able to, just from your common life and experience, say that that was blood?
Yes.
When you, in the bedroom, when you saw the discoloration to the mattress, what, if anything, did you do?
Well, the next thing I noticed, there was a smell in the air, an odor, and it smelled just like bleach.
Obviously, you had smelled bleach throughout your life.
Yes.
Was it, would you say, a strong smell, weak smell?
Yes, very strong.
Was it a smell that was throughout the entire apartment or localized to the bedroom at that time?
Localized to the bedroom.
Based on your observations in the bedroom on the mattress, did you touch the mattress?
I did.
And where in relation to the stain on the mattress did you touch?
Just like this, I touched on each side of the stain.
Okay. And just for the record to reflect, Mr. Prosser has lifted his hands up and to about, is that about 2 feet apart?
Yeah, about that.
Okay, and that would have been on the outside edges of the stain?
Outside edges.
What did you notice when you touched the mattress?
That it was wet.
Was it damp, soaked, somewhere in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle.
Did any wetness come off on your fingers?
No.
Were your fingers discolored in any way?
No.
When you lifted your hands off of the mattress, did they smell like bleach?
Yes.
Did you specifically smell them to check?
Yes.
Where, or what else, if anything, and again, with the understanding that you hadn't been to this apartment before, when you had visited Stephanie previously in other apartments, did she always have bedding on her bed?
Yes,
Did she have a favorite blanket?
she did.
What was it?
I never recall seeing it very often, but it was a printed blanket of a horse. As far as colors and all that, I can't give you the detail.
So again, and so that wasn't there?
It was not there.
In the bedroom specifically, was there anything else that you noted, again, with the understanding that you hadn't been there, that seemed abnormal to you knowing Stephanie?
Nothing really.
Where did you go next?
Next, I went back into the kitchen.
Okay.
I actually peeked in the bathroom, peeked in the other bedroom, but didn't really notice anything, and went into the kitchen.
And I know that, well, let me just say, did you, when you peeked in the bathroom, did you notice or remember whether the toilet seat was up, down, or something else?
I do not. At this point, that was not a concern of mine.
And did you recall whether there were any towels or clothing on the floor of the bathroom?
No,
So bathroom really didn't stand out to you?
no.
Let's talk about the kitchen. You mentioned that Stephanie was very tied to her dogs, they were her children. Would she have ever let them go without food or water?
Not ever.
Did you happen to see the dog food and water bowls in the kitchen?
I did, in the kitchen sink.
And did Stephanie have a habit of any kind about the dog bowls in the sink,
She wouldn't let him eat or drink at night.
so they wouldn't have an accident?
Right.
Okay. And so now it's 5 o'clock plus in the evening on Sunday, dog bowls are still in the sink?
Correct.
Did the dogs have any food or water available to them?
No.
And for daytime hours, that's abnormal?
Very abnormal.
Did you remember seeing any,
The first thing I saw that it possibly could have been was an opened, very small liquor bottle on a table at the foot of the bed.
and when you say open, do you mean the cap was off, or do you just mean that it was unsealed?
The cap was off.
Was the bottle empty or full or something else?
About a third full.
Do you remember what kind of alcohol it was?
No, I do not.
Do you recall whether the bottle was brown, clear, or something else?
The bottle was clear.
Was the alcohol within the bottle brown, clear, or something else?
Brown.
Is that why you touched the mattress to see if it was the booze?
Yes.
Was there any smell of booze that you noticed after touching the mattress?
No.
So if the cap was off and there was a bottle, where exactly was this
It
bottle?
was on a table that was sitting at the, like a card table or a tray for eating, like at your recliner type table at the foot of the bed.
Had Shelley and or Alyssa come to the bedroom before you got there?
No.
So you were the first one in there?
I was the first one in the bedroom.
So, as far as you mentioned the bedroom, you told us the things that you saw that you noticed, the kitchen, bathroom, not really. Do you recall anyone leaving a note for Stephanie if she came home?
No, I do not.
So if someone did that, is it possible you just didn't see it?
It's possible.
Is there anything else in any of the rooms that you saw that is important for the jury to know that you saw within the home?
Not that I recall.
Did you become aware that throughout this time that you were inside the apartment that the police had been called?
Yes.
And did they in fact respond to 701, I believe it's and a half, Thomas Street while you were there?
Yes.
At some point in time, did you leave the residence?
Not until the officers told us that to leave and just go home and they would take care of it.
When you left, did you take the dogs with you?
Yes.
When you were waiting for officers to arrive, were you waiting inside of the residence or outside?
No, we were outside, inside my vehicle.
When you left the residence, do you know if you locked the doors behind you?
Did not, the officers were still there.
Okay. Oh, so you got, but you indicated that you were out in the car, correct?
Yes,
So when you left and went to the car, had the officers already arrived?
yes.
Oh, okay, thank you, I misunderstood that. And then if I asked you this already, I apologize, I just want to make sure I cover it. When you were there the first time at 11:30, were you able to see up into the apartment to see if the lights were off or on?
No,
And when you got back at between 4 and 5, were you able to determine, once you got inside, whether all the lights were off or on?
no,
You don't remember?
I don't recall.
Okay. At 4 or 5 o'clock in October, still light out?
Yes,
And that was October 10th of 2010?
correct.
Had you ever heard of Kristopher Torgerson at that point in time?
No, I have not.
And you didn't learn where Stephanie was until 2014?
Correct.
Okay. I'd asked you if you knew about the lights when you were inside the apartment. Do you recall if you or Alyssa or Shelley turned on any of the lights?
I do not recall.
Okay.
I know I didn't.
Okay. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures now, and then it will be Mr. Wilmer's turn to ask you some questions, okay?
All right.
Tom, I'm using ones that have all been marked already. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 41. Aside from it being dark in this picture, is that a fair and accurate representation of the outside door of Stephanie Lowe's apartment in October of 2010?
Yes, it is.
And then I'll show you Exhibit 51. Is this a fair and accurate representation of the stain on the floor inside of Stephanie's apartment?
Yes, it is.
And in showing you, Exhibit 16, there's, could you describe what's in that picture?
That is her closet, clothes and shoes. The table I had mentioned earlier with the bottle of alcohol on it, and her TV, and then the mattress.
And is that the liquor bottle that you saw at the apartment?
Yes, it is.
In that picture, does it appear the cap is on or off? Do you know?
It appears to me that it is off.
And then in showing you number 12, is that a fair and accurate depiction of what the stain on the bed looked like when you were present?
Yes.
And then just one more, a little bit farther away, this is Exhibit 6. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the stain as well?
Yes.
Okay. And I know the jury has seen these, but I just want them to see what I showed Mr. Prosser, so if the court allows them to just... And one last thing, Mr. Prosser, did you ever become, while you were at the apartment or before, were you ever aware of any safe in any closet?
No, I was not.
I have no other questions at this time. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I don't have much to cover with you, but I want to talk about this lights in the apartment setup, okay?
Okay.
Now, I know we are 6.5 some years removed from the day you've been testifying about, right?
Correct.
But you recall that while you were on the scene, you actually spoke to a uniformed Wausau police officer about what you observed up there, right?
Correct.
Do you remember telling Officer John Kinlarski that we all went upstairs and you turned on all the lights? Do you remember that?
No, I do not.
Do you remember telling Officer Kinlarski, this would be, the 4:30 entry into the apartment, you with me?
Mm-hmm.
That all the lights had been off. You don't remember that?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you remember if any of the blinds in the bedroom of the apartment, the main bedroom, were down or drawn?
I do not.
Do you remember telling Officer Kinlarski, Clark said he opened the blinds?
I do not.
Do you remember, as you sit here today, that when you went into Stephanie Lowe's bedroom at approximately 4:30 p.m., the windows of her bedroom had been open?
I do not.
So you don't remember telling Officer Kinlarski. Clark said he also closed Stephanie's bedroom windows, two which had been open.
I do not.
And you remember then, I trust you don't remember telling Officer Kinlarski all the other windows in the apartment had been closed.
I do not.
Okay. Let's talk about the liquor bottle that you have testified about that you found on that side table that was at the foot of the bed, right?
Okay.
I understood your testimony today to be when you first walked in the apartment, that liquor bottle was on that table that was at the foot of the bed, right?
Correct.
Do you remember being interviewed by a lieutenant by the name of William Kolb on December 12, 2011, pointing out the alcohol bottle sitting on the round table at the foot of the bed and telling Lieutenant Kolb the bottle was laying on its side on the bare mattress closer to the foot of the bed?
I do not.
And you remember telling him that it was open and he thought it had just a little alcohol in it?
I do.
That you do remember?
That I do. As I testified to that here today.
And, okay, I didn't remember. Thanks, Scott. You did say that today.
Yes.
Now, you talked about Miss Lowe having a unique blanket with a horse picture on it.
Correct.
Horse depicted on it. Right?
Correct.
And it was missing.
Yes.
She also had kind of a unique key chain with her keys on it, right?
Do not know. Never saw them.
Do you remember telling Lieutenant Kolb in that December 12, 2011 interview that he asked you about noticing Lowe's keys missing? Prosser remembered that Lowe's keys did have some type of yellow Tweety bird attached to them. You don't remember that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the spare bedroom, or the second bedroom that was opposite Miss Lowe's and Eric Mahomes' bedroom. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The bathroom, we now understand, is in between the two bedrooms, right?
Correct.
Do you remember, it doesn't look like it was addressed back in 2010 or 2011, so this is going to be hard, I would imagine. Do you remember whether that spare bedroom door was open or closed?
I believe it was closed.
That was your first time at the apartment, right?
Correct.
I got one last thing to ask you, okay?
Okay.
I gotta make sure I understand. You're of the belief, based upon the totality of your observations, on Sunday, October 10, 2010, that somebody entered that apartment between 11:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Yes?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Redirect?
One second, Judge. Very briefly, Mr. Prosser, a lot of the interviews that you did on this case with law enforcement was much closer in time to the time that Stephanie disappeared, correct?
Correct.
And so if you told one of the detectives that some of the windows had been opened or that you opened the blinds, is it possible that you said that and you just don't remember?
It is very possible.
Is it possible that you did that and 6 years later you don't?
It's very possible.
You're not attempting to mislead anyone here today?
Not at all.
So you may have seen a Tweety Bird keychain, but you just have no recollection?
Correct.
You indicated in response to Attorney Wilmot's question that you believe that somebody entered the apartment between the first time and the second time you were there.
Correct.
But aside from bringing in the mail, you have no idea what they did or who it was.
Correct.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Can you read for us?
I'd ask that Mr. Foster be released from discipline.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. And you're excused.
Oh, and I'd ask that the picture, I think those were already moved into evidence. So. State's next witness. Are you ready?
Yeah, all right.
Is Brittany Lowe. Oh, it'll just be 1 minute, Your Honor. I believe she's using the facilities.
Jury wants to get up and stretch their legs. Go ahead, stand up. Come back there, want to stand up? Go ahead.
We're ready when you are, Judge.
Can you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that the testimony about the revelation, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know you're a little bit soft-spoken, so that microphone does move around.
Okay. On this slide forward.
Thank you. Could you state your full name and spell both your first and your last for the record?
Brittany Lowe, Brittanylow.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe, do you and did you know a young woman by the name of Stephanie Lowe?
Yes, I did.
And how did you know Stephanie?
Stephanie was my cousin.
Are you two pretty close in age?
Yes,
How far apart are you?
about 2 years.
And are you older or younger?
She's my younger cousin.
Did the two of you grow up together?
Yes, we did. We spent a lot of time together growing up.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up around here in Wausau.
And did Stephanie also spend a big chunk of her childhood here in Wausau?
Yes. She lived in Waukesha for a while, but we always visited her there as well.
So, around the time of 2010, are you able to say how often you would see each other or talk or things of that nature?
Yeah, pretty frequently. There was times when maybe we wouldn't talk for a couple weeks, and then we would talk every other day. It just depended, but regularly we were talking and seeing each other.
Okay. Had it been a little bit harder to get together? You would have had a baby recently, right?
Yeah, my baby was about a month old at that time.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So when, on October 9th of 2010, are you pretty familiar with that date?
Yes.
Did the two of you have some plans to get together that day?
Well, we didn't plan ahead to get together, but I had called her that morning, and we did end up getting together.
Do you remember about what time you first talked to Stephanie on the night?
To be honest, I don't remember the exact time. I had went to Harvest Fest, so it was sometime in the morning that I had called her.
What is Harvest Fest?
It's like they do like a pumpkin patch downtown, and the kids can pick out pumpkins. They have kids' activities and things like that.
And in fact, you had an older child at that point too, correct?
Yes, it did.
And so were you planning on taking the older child and possibly leaving the younger one?
Yeah, originally I was thinking I was going to take both of the kids, but my baby was really young and it was pretty cold that morning. So I, at the last minute, decided to find somebody to watch the baby.
And so did you ask Stephanie to do that?
Yes.
And she agreed to?
Yes.
Had she spent a fair amount of time with, well, I guess only being a month old, she couldn't have spent too much time with your baby, but did she spend a fair amount of time with your older child?
Yeah, she was pretty close with my oldest. She was actually her godmother.
And you trusted Stephanie to watch your child without you present?
Yeah, definitely.
When, so around, if you know, what time do you think Stephanie took over watching your older child? What's your older child's name? I feel that's important.
My oldest one is Tiana. She watched the younger one.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. And what is your younger child's name?
Anaya.
Okay, so you and Tiana went to Harvest Fest. Stephanie stayed with Anaya.
Yes.
And was that at her residence or somewhere else?
At her residence.
And were you aware of who she shared that residence with?
Yes, I knew that her boyfriend also lived there.
And who did you know her boyfriend to be?
Eric Mahomes.
Did he also go by the nickname D?
Yes.
And at the time that Stephanie was watching Anaya for you, Eric was in custody, right?
Yes.
So do you know about what time Stephanie took over taking care of Anaya?
I can't say for certain, but I would say late morning.
And this is still on October 9th, that Saturday.
Yes.
And did you drop Anaya off, or did Stephanie pick her up?
I dropped Anaya off.
And so you and Tiana went to Harvest Fest and at some point in time came back to Stephanie's residence?
Yes.
Are you able to tell us about how long you were gone?
I think I got there pretty late, so I don't think I was there for more than an hour or two.
So if you were there for an hour or two, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sometime mid-afternoon?
Yes.
So what, if anything, did you do once you had gone back to Stephanie's house to pick up Anaya?
We went to lunch, and then we ran a few errands that she needed to run as well.
Okay. You and Stephanie and just your kids?
Yes.
Where did you go for lunch?
The Mint Cafe downtown.
And you said that you had to run some errands. Do you remember where you went?
Yes.
Where did you go?
We went to Barnes & Nobles, and then we also went to Walmart.
Do you know if Stephanie purchased anything at Walmart?
I know that she put some money on the phone, And then she also made some purchases at Walmart as well. I don't recall what specifically she purchased. I know that we picked up books for Eric Mahomes, but I can't say for certain if it was there.
Books for him to read while he was...
Incarcerated, that she was having sent, yes.
And what she purchased isn't as important, but you're aware that she did make a purchase at Walmart?
Yes.
Okay. When she made those purchases at Walmart, this isn't terribly important, but was she getting stuff for Eric?
Yes, that was pretty much what we did all day.
All right, so by the time you guys are all done with errands and everything, are you aware of what time it is?
I would say early evening, maybe like 5 or so would be my guess.
Okay, so in October, still light out probably?
Probably.
So did you drop her off at her residence?
I did.
And did you and the kids stay for any more time, or did you get going?
No, we had stopped in when I picked up the baby, just for a second for her to get her ready, and then we left. And then when I dropped her off, she just went in on her own.
Okay. So if that's early evening hours of the 9th, did you talk to her again that evening?
I did.
Okay, and are you able to say about what time that was?
I would say about 7:15.
And during your conversation at 7:22, or you didn't say 7:22, you said around 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I had that number written down for some reason.
That's okay.
When you talked to her around that evening, around that time that evening, do you remember what you two talked about?
I do.
And could you tell us?
She had called me to ask me how much a certain amount of drugs was. She wanted to know how much it was, what it was worth, that type of stuff.
And just to kind of dig into that issue a little bit, Eric was involved in selling some drugs. Were you aware of that?
I wasn't aware of that at the time. Well, I mean, I guess I was when she called me, but prior to that, I had no knowledge of that.
Okay. And so did it surprise you that she was asking you about drug amounts?
Kind of, because she wasn't really involved in drugs herself, personally. Obviously, Eric was, but it wasn't something she normally would have called and asked about.
Did she make you aware that while Eric was gone, she was trying to make some money?
No, not necessarily. I kind of assumed that based off of what she was asking me, but she never specifically stated what she was going to do with them.
So on the so during that conversation, and I guess I should ask this, and with no disrespect, was that information that you would have known at that time in your life?
Yes,
And was that because you were at a point in your life not making the best decisions?
correct.
Do you remember how much stuff she said she had, or the questions she was asking?
I couldn't say for certain, but from my recollection, I would have said around 40 or 42 grams was kind of what I think that she said at the time.
Was that number, did that number mean something? 42 seems like an arbitrary number to people who don't know drugs. Does that number mean something?
Not really. 28 grams would have been like an ounce, so I mean, it wasn't quite 2 ounces. It'd be an off number.
Okay. So when she was asking about drugs, was she asking what to do with them, what they were worth, what the weights were? What was she asking?
I mean, what she wanted to know the most was just what it was worth. But I mean, I did give her other information as to like how she would break it down and what the different values would be.
And Brittany, do you recall, I know it was a long time ago, do you remember what your cell phone number was back then?
I don't know if I do. I've had so many. Like, I know a lot of phone numbers, but I can't necessarily say for certain what one I had at that time.
If we told you that we had kind of done some recon and found out what your phone number was at that time, if I mentioned it to you, do you think you'd recall it?
Definitely.
Does the number 715-302-2847 sound familiar?
Yes.
Okay. As to, after that, after Saturday evening, when you had that phone call with her, did you have any other communication with Stephanie?
No.
So the last time you spoke to her was that evening phone call when you talked with Stephanie about what we just discussed?
Yes.
Did you know Kristopher Torgerson?
No.
You'd never met him?
Never.
Thank you, Whitney.
You're
I have no
welcome.
other questions.
Ross?
Yes, sir. I just gotta give me a second, armed with that phone number that I just got, okay? A lot of phone records. If I just have a moment of your time, ma'am.
Yes.
Well, look, maybe you can help me. You had two different phone conversations with your cousin about cocaine trafficking, right?
I believe I had one phone conversation. That's what I recall.
Okay, do you remember talking to a then detective by the name of Matthew Barnes on October 15th, 2010, and indicating to him that on Friday night at 7:16 p.m., and showing him your telephone, that you talked to Stephanie Lowe about what she should pay for 42 grams of crack cocaine?
I don't recall the conversation. I recall speaking with Detective Barnes, but I don't recall saying that specifically.
Okay, so you have no recollection of talking to Stephanie Lowe about how much she should pay while Eric Mahomes is in jail for 42 grams of cocaine. No recollection of that.
No, I don't recall that. It's been a few years.
Okay.
So I definitely don't. I know that we spoke about the drugs, and that's what I can tell you.
Because you only remember one drug conversation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, when you talked to Barnes, Lieutenant Barnes, on October 15th, 2010, which would have been 6 or 7 days after the phone conversation I'm talking about, your recollection would have been better.
Yes.
So you do you remember Stephanie Lowe ever talking to you about drug trafficking in this context? I don't have a dollar to my name. Remember that?
No.
Okay. So if you didn't tell Detective Barnes that Eric Mahomes and J-Ball took all the money and I don't have a dollar to my name, she told me.
No, I don't recall that. However, like I said, it's been quite some time.
Sure. The drug conversation you do remember would have been about what Stephanie Lowe should charge other people for a certain amount of crack cocaine. Is that it?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay. And you don't remember this conversation about what she should pay for 42 grams, that conversation on Friday, October 8th. The conversation about what she should sell 30 grams, what day did that happen? Saturday, October 9th?
Yes, the October 9th date is the date that I talked to her about what that would be worth.
And did you talk to her, you gave her some advice about how to package it?
I don't recall the entire conversation. I do know that we spoke pretty extensively about the drugs. That was the purpose of her phone call.
Well, do you remember talking, looks like 16 days ago, no, 14 days ago, to Detective Jennifer Holtz, the woman seated at council table, that your discussion with Stephanie Lowe on Saturday, October 9th, 2010, about what she should sell 20 to 30 grams for, you responded, well, it depends on the amount you divide the drug up into. Remember
Yes,
that?
correct.
Okay. So there was some talk now about packaging, right?
Yes.
Well, did you know whether your cousin had the raw materials to do that packaging?
No, I didn't. And I didn't even know whether or not she was going to do that. I volunteered more information than she asked for.
Did you advise her not to do that?
I did not.
Did you just say you volunteered more information than she asked for?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I had more knowledge of drugs at that time than what she did. So I think that during the conversation, I did more of the talking than what she did.
Well, she asked you what she should sell 20 to 30 grams for, right?
She asked me what it would be worth, what she had.
What did you tell her?
Like what you just said on there. It depends on how you were to package that.
Well, did you give her any advice on how much packages or what to put in each package or how to do that?
I can't recall
I'm
that.
gonna object, I think we're getting past the point of relevance.
Of course we are. I'll move on. And you never heard what she did with that 20 or 30 grams?
No.
42 grams, we had a little conversation about that. You thought that was an odd number, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually 1.5 ounces on the dot, isn't it? You know that.
I mean, I didn't do the math before I came up here.
28 grams is an ounce, right?
Yes.
So is it your testimony, Ms. Lowe, that before your friend Stephanie Lowe met Eric Mahomes, she wasn't involved in drug trafficking, right?
Correct.
Once she met Eric Mahomes, did she associate with drug traffickers?
Objection.
Well, I should probably finish the question first.
Finish the question.
Did she associate with drug traffickers in addition to Mr. Mahomes?
Again, objection.
Sustained.
Were you concerned when you learned that your cousin was asking you about what she should do with 20 to 30 grams of crack cocaine? Were you concerned about her safety?
Not about her safety necessarily. I was a little bit concerned because it wasn't something that she was typically involved in.
I have nothing further to say.
Any regret?
Just very briefly, Ms. Lowe, if you talked to Detective Barnes very close in time to the time that Stephanie disappeared, and there was a phone call at 7:16 on Friday night, and you had the phone records with him, do you dispute that that happened?
No, definitely not.
Is your memory probably better that close in time than it is now?
Definitely.
And you're not disputing that you had conversations about drugs with Stephanie?
Not at all.
And Attorney Wilmouth made reference to the conversation you had with Detective Barnes. In fact, you just said that you suspected that Stephanie wanted to know what she should pay for 42 grams of crack cocaine to Detective Barnes. And you don't remember that conversation with Detective Barnes, correct?
I mean, I remember having a conversation. I don't remember the exact context of the conversation.
I don't think I have anything else to say.
Real brief. How about this, though, dialogue with Lieutenant Barnes on October 15, 2010? During our conversation, Stephanie asked, how many grams are there to an ounce? Do you remember her telling Barnes that?
I don't remember that.
Okay, how about this? Stephanie asked Brittany what 42 grams would be. You remember that?
Do I remember that?
Yeah.
No, not specifically.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you.
And Ms. Lowe, if no objection, can you release from her subpoena?
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Can you step down?
Judge, we have one additional witness that's probably going to be somewhat longer. I don't know if the court wants to get started with the exact report or how the court would like to proceed.
You see, how much longer would you?
A lot of it depends on the cross-examination, Judge. I don't think my questioning will take more than 40 minutes.
Then let's start.
Okay, if yours is going to take 40 minutes, that's going to take us 10 to 5. I don't really want to go past 5. So your cross-examination would be longer than 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's call it a day for today and start back tomorrow at 8:30.
They probably won't be on for more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Oh, the scene security guys are 4 of them who should be really quick.
Okay.
So we'd like to get through, 9 witnesses tomorrow. We're kind of averaging about 8 witnesses a day, and if we end up ahead of schedule, then great.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want to know who they are?
No. End of the road map.
We'll let Mr. Woolman do the hours.
We already-
Did you already go through it with him? Okay.
Anything else you have to handle, or otherwise?
Oh, do you want to just collect the exhibits that were already moved into evidence?
Yes,
Make sure
give it
they're
to the
not-
clerk.